Scenes of chaos erupted Sunday in Brazil's capital, Brasilia. A violent mob of ex-President Jair Bolsonaro supporters stormed the presidential palace, Brazil's Congress, and also the Supreme Court, protesting the election of leftist President Lula Da Silva a week after his inauguration. Brazilian authorities have already apprehended 1,500 rioters in connection with the uprising, and they're expanding their investigation to uncover who funded the mob. Pro-Bolsonaro Brazilians are refusing to accept Lula's win, claiming without evidence the election was stolen from the former far-right leader. Sound familiar? Here to discuss the unrest in Brazil is Addy Adds, an investigative reporter on the ground there. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Mr. Sove. Slight correction, I'm actually back stateside. I had to flee Brazil under threat of life, which I can get into, but thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that for folks who don't know the full background of what's been going on in the country. Lula Da Silva was an incredibly popular leader who left office with unprecedented, something like high 80s, low 90s popularity ratings. He was subsequently the focus of this investigation by a conservative movement in Brazil that resulted in his incarceration, thwarting his chances for re-election the next time around. Jair Bolsonaro obviously wins, as later revealed through incredible reporting like that of primarily that of Glenn Greenwald at the Intercept, who has Intercept has offices in Brazil, that there was a relationship between the conservative politicos that were targeting this investigation into corruption in order to put Lula Da Silva into jail and sideline him from being able to be a real opponent here in the race. Lula is freed and subsequently is victorious here. The background to all of that, I think, really changes what's people's perception of what's going on here, because there really did seem to be a genuine populist upswell of a movement. Bolsonaro was popular in part because of his anti-poverty programs that lifted millions of people out of poverty in Brazil. So can you tell us a little bit about how these protests are being read in the country as compared to perhaps how the 1-6 protests were being perceived here by the conservative versus liberal factions in our country?
That's a great question, Miss, and I'm glad you asked it. I would say similar to what happened here in January 6th in the United States, the mainstream media is labeling these people as terrorists, as I mentioned, and people can look at the videos too if they want. There's old people there, old women there, talking about hallelujah, praise to God. There's also reports and rumors of infiltrators. These are sources on the ground that are telling this to me. So I'm just relaying what people are telling me. People with masks. There was one person on video spotted with a Lula flag, and people already in the Congress, which they did enter Congress and the Supreme Court on Sunday, breaking things. And again, they were mostly masked up. So I don't know if there's something deeper going on there akin to January 6th here, but I do want to point out that there are big differences between, the movements. Brazil is a different culture, different language, very different people, I can tell you. And that being said, there are similarities as well, but it does seem the mainstream media wants to paint this as an exact replica of the United States January 6th, which I think is dishonest and not genuine.
But we appreciate you joining us here today, Addy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
We'll have more Rising for you right after this.